I know it hasn't been a very long time since I was last at this desk and in front of this camera, but I find myself a little enthused by what we're doing here. So welcome back to the shed part 3. Now there has been a little bit of off-camera progress, as you might be able to see. First things first, so where we left it last time, I just put the plaster cloth on to the general shape. I needed to blend it in a little bit more and just kind of neaten off a couple of areas and rough up a couple of areas as well. So I did something a little bit cheeky, and I've done this a million times before, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all, and that is that I used some cheap ready mixed filler, you know, polyfiller type stuff. But I think this was from the range, that was probably about half the price of anything else, and that has gone on in small areas just to smooth out the dips and where it joins the what will be the track base, and just to rough up certain areas as well. And then also I used my airbrush for the first time ever, and you know, to learn how to use the airbrush, I thought I'll just give this some coats of paint. So I used some MIG Ammo Earth with a tiny bit of MIG Ammo Matte Black mixed in as well. Thinned that down and gave it a fairly liberal coating over the top, so that we've got a base coat layer to be working with. Now you may have also seen that I have cut a piece of track, not perfectly to size yet, because we're going to slap that in position, fix it down, do what we need to do with it, and then I'll get the Dremel out to properly cut it to size to fit with the diorama, because it gets a little bit more fiddly then to do it nicely. But that's kind of where we're at. So what are we going to do today? I'm going to use some more filler. Reason being, I want to raise the track up just slightly, so that when I'm ballasting it, it gives it that nice sort of raised track bed look to it that you might expect. Now a lot of the time we would achieve that by putting a strip of cork underneath it, which is great if you're creating a layout, because you need that for deadening sound as well. I don't. I just need this to come up a small amount. The one thing I don't like about using cork is you get that hard edge that can then be a little bit tricky to get the ballast looking just right going up the sides of. So I thought, why not just use a bit of this stuff and create a smoothed lump, if you will, up through the middle. So that's what we're going to do. So first things first, I'm just going to mark this out about where I think it should go, and then I'm just going to put some marks with a marker pen. I don't need to worry about if this marks up the sleepers or anything, because that's all going to get painted and weathered in time as well. So you will see me learning how to use my airbrush. And thank you to the man from Bunter's Yard, Dave, who sort of helped me just get that bit of confidence to go and do it for the first time the other day. So I had a chat with Dave on the latest episode of the Rail People podcast. So if you haven't heard that yet, go search for Rail People wherever you find your normal podcasts. And you will hear my chat with Dave, and there's a back catalogue even of other episodes from past series. But let's crack on with raising this rail bed. So you know what's coming. It's time lapse. Right, a new day, and this has gone rock solid, and actually I think is flat enough, considering that's going to get ballasted in anyway and loads of glue and stuff all over it. I think that's absolutely fine, so it's flat enough for me. So what I'm going to do now is take some time to paint this base and get it the same colour as all of this. So I guess it is airbrush time. You can just about see my airbrush sneaking in there. It's just a fairly basic Expo one, but will do me for starters. And look, I'm no airbrush expert, so this is certainly no tutorial. I'm literally just going to do it my way, and I'm sure some of you will then point out to me that I've done things wrong, and that's fine. I'm happy to hear that. So, like I say, I'm just going to use a little of this. This is MIG 0073 Earth acrylic colour, and then a smidge of the black as well. Give it a good shake first. I think I can manage that bit. So not much of the black. Just found that the earth by itself was a little light. Maybe it's good for earth in other countries, but this country is muddy. I've just whacked in some acrylic thinner as well, and now I'm looking for my little stirrer. I can't find my stirrer. What have I done with my stirrer? Oh, it's in here. I'll just give it a little stir in there. Again, I'm sure there's probably a better way of doing this, but works for me. And I was told to mix it about 50-50, get it to a sort of milky sort of consistency. So there we go. So now all of that's done, and not looking too bad really. It's time to get the Dremel out, or the unbranded Dremel. Was it a Ginor, which I think I got from Amazon, and to cut the rails down to be flush with the end of the diorama board, just to make it a little bit neater. So that's what I'm going to do now. But be careful when doing this, and make sure, if you are not of age, that you get an appropriate adult to do it with you. Well, with those bits cut off, we're now left with exactly the diorama board, and really a blank canvas to start working on. So really the question then becomes about what you tackle first, whether it's putting some kind of ground cover on, or whether it's working on the track area. And I think for me, I'm going to favour working on the track area first, because it's difficult to think through at this stage exactly where the grass is going to go, because the part of me is thinking, well, you probably want to do the grass before you do the ballasting down here, to avoid grass getting stuck in the ballast and things like that. But obviously, as long as it's completely dry and set before you start doing the grass, then you'll be fine. But really, I think the where the grass will go will end up evolving over time, and therefore I think working on the track is the bit that's probably prime to work on right now, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm going to start working on, which means I need to dig into my box and see what kind of ballast I've got left, because this project as well, I'm trying to use as much stuff that I've already got. So bear with me, I'll be back. So I've had a dig around, and what I found is some scraps of this sort of quite coarse ballast, which is this is the bulk product that I use for the jars of RAILstuff. That's the granite grey track ballast, and that's the granite grey superfine ballast. And these are some remnants I've got left from putting stuff in jars in the past. They're not perfect for what I want, but I quite enjoy recolouring ballast and making it what I want. Now some of you will have seen a video in the past where I did that, but if you haven't, then there's going to be a quick crash course in how I do that in just a moment. But the first thing I'm doing is I'm just taking an old water bottle. I haven't got a shaker really to mix this up, so I'm just taking an old water bottle. So look at me recycling, huh? And the first thing to do is actually just take some kitchen roll and dry it out, because you don't want any remnants of water in there when you're mixing up the ballast. So I'm just going to do that, because we're going to mix up the ballast colour, probably with some pigment and things like that. You know, you don't want the water in there. I mean, it won't do any harm, it's just you might then find you got a blotch of ballast that's a little bit more coloured than others, where the pigment sticks to anything that's got wet. Anyway, so we're going to put some track ballast in. And then, you see, the other thing is you'll find that you know, there are various grades of ballast within one area. So I'm going to mix a little bit of the superfine ballast in there as well. I don't think you always need to have just one coarseness, if that's even a word, I don't know. So I'm going to sort of pop that lid back on there gently and shake up to mix it up together. Oh, some of it's coming out of the gap. That's good. Well done, Adam. Oh, and even more of it's coming out now. That's excellent. Brilliant. Anyway, you've got a general mixture in there now of the coarser and the finer ballast. And then there's two ways in which you can recolour this. You can either use some like chalky pastels, which that's quite good, or you can use some weathering pigment. Now I want this a little darker, so I've got some black soil weathering pigment here, as you can see there. But what I will say is you do not need much weathering pigment to recolour some ballast. So I'm just scooping some up here and tapping it in, and you really don't need much to recolour ballast at all. Now, based on just how my shaking went earlier, I'm going to go with some kitchen roll over the top instead. That has begun to just darken the ballast a little bit. I only want subtle. I'm not going for anything dramatic here. But I am now looking for my pastels. Right, I don't know where my pastels have gone, but I have got some other pigments available, some MIG ammo stuff that I'm testing out at the moment to see what they're like. So I'm just going to put a smidgen of Europe Earth in there. Oh. There's going to be an outtakes for this one, obviously. Oh, God, there is weathering pigment everywhere. Oh dear. We'll put a little bit of track rust in there as well, and we'll try not to knock this one over afterwards. But I do like a sort of reddy brown look to the ballast as well. Because I find that round here, a lot of the ballast is just like, God, there's pigment everywhere. That's now given that quite a nice subtle change of colour, and you'll find that when you actually glue the ballast in place, then that will actually fix the pigment as well, so you know you haven't got to worry about it all getting washed off. Now one thing I am going to do is, because I don't want the ballast going everywhere. And one thing I really struggle with a lot of the time is creating fairly neat lines along the side. So I'm actually going to use a bit of masking tape, not because it's going to stop the ballast from going over that area, but it will stop the ballast from sticking in that area in theory when I then put the glue on. So I'm going to sort of mark out a straight line of where I want the ballast to end. This, by the way, is a pure experiment. I've never done this before, but I want neater lines at the edge of my ballasting. So I thought, well, let's give this a go and see if it does anything. Obviously there'll be a little bit of blending in, you know, with the scenics at the edge, the static grass, the mud at the edge that can help neaten up the edge of the ballast, but I just want something a little neater in the first place to begin with. So this is either going to work or it's not. I think based on today's evidence it's more likely to not, but it's worth a go. It's worth a go. Now I'm just going to use this shaker out of a water bottle that I created earlier to put the ballast in place. Good thing is this isn't a running layout, so I don't have to be ridiculously careful with it, but I'll then neaten it up with some brushes and things anyway, because we want it to look fairly good at least. I'll tell you what I am just thinking is I could do with some boards or something on the end to stop the ballast from just running off into everywhere. So I'm going to fix this in place with a bit more masking tape if I can. Using some decent quality modelling masking tape, which I've got for a loco painting project that I've got that I want to do at some point, and for sort of learning some weathering and things now that I've got an airbrush. Just trying to get this to sort of hold in place. The only problem with low tack stuff is that it, you know, doesn't tack. I mean, this isn't the perfect stuff to be using to create the barrier at the end, but I just want to stop the the ballast from going crazy off the ends. I think I've spilt enough stuff in this workshop today. For anyone who's interested, my trouser legs are absolutely covered in Europe Earth pigment. They look like I've been rolling around in dust, basically. Anyway, that should do just to hold the ballast in place. So let's get pouring. Well, as most of you will know, a 50-50 mix of PVA and water is a cheap and easy way to fix your ballast down. There are plenty of other ways. Some of the deluxe materials items are really good to work with, but for something as small as this, I'm just going to use a 50-50 PVA water. And also, like I've said before, this isn't going to have any running trains on it, so I don't need to worry about it too much. I'm just going to give it a bit of a spray first with some water. Well, it's closer to IPA actually, but just that will soak into the stones and allow the PVA to then soak into it as well. And then I'm going to be applying this with a pipette. Great thing to have in your toolbox is a big pack of cheap pipettes, because you can use them for all sorts, especially when you're doing static grass as well. They're really useful. But I'm going to give this a spray with the IPA first, and then add on the glue. Right, so that's had a really good coverage now, more than I'd normally use, but obviously I just want to give this a really good fix down for this project. So yeah, we're probably looking at 24 hours now until that's dried, so let's come back and see what it's like tomorrow. Right, so ballast is dried. I've taken off the masking tape and scraped away some of the excess and neatened it up. I'm fairly happy with how it's come out, I think, but especially by the time you start to bed in the scenics around it, then it should look alright. What I've never done before though is had an airbrush to be able to weather a track in place, but I do now, so I'm going to give that a go. And what you're probably going to see in time lapse here is me giving it a go for the first time. I'm going to start with some. So basically, I'm using this Railway Fast method set that I've shown you before from MIG Ammo. You know where to get it, RAILstuff.com. And I'm going to start with the earth colour here, which is actually sort of what's been used here. I've mixed it up with a little bit of other stuff as well, but I'm just going to give it some earth colour over the sides of the ballast, just to sort of soften it off, blend it in a little bit. Once I've done that, then so it's got some pictures on the back of the packaging here of you know, some ideas of how you can use the paints. So I'll probably then start to look at, so what's the 34? 34 is rust tracks. So I'll probably give the rust tracks a go over the actual track area. Yeah, and I'll sort of keep working with that. I mean, I don't want to completely coat the tracks, because, you know, I actually went for the concrete sleeper version of track for a reason. You know, I didn't want black sleepers. I wanted the sort of more realistic look. So anyway, long and the short of it is, I'm going to go with some earth to start off with, then do some rust tracks, then probably do a little bit of old rust dotted around, and then add in some matte black down the middles as some oil spills and things like that, and we'll see how I get on. You know, I'm either going to get it right or I'm not. We'll see. We'll see. What I have learnt though is that I probably wasn't using enough thinner before, so I'm going to put a bit more thinner in than I have done before, and see if I get on a little bit better with it. So with a bit of first time track weathering under my belt with my Expo airbrush and my MIG ammo paints, I'm reasonably happy with that. It's not you know, the kind of standard that you get from a lot of people, but this is my first ever attempt. So I'll take that as a first attempt, and things might get then just improved upon a little bit as we go through the project. But what we've got now is solid base for landscaping works to begin, and for us to finally create a home for the shed. So I think that's about as far as we're going to go for this part of the project. Next up is likely to be some static grass cover. So that's going to involve me actually planning out where stuff is going to go, and then yeah, it'll be static grass cover, which is probably going to be quite dark, autumny, wintry, or maybe even the patchy grass style. I quite like that from WW Scenics. Full range of colours available at RAILstuff.com, of course. WW Scenics. You can grab yourself one of these sheds, you can grab yourself the plaster cloth that I used. Well, you definitely can, because I've just had 140 odd rolls of them delivered whilst I was making this video. So yep, I'm good on plaster cloth for a while. The ballast, that was the RAILstuff track ballast, and then I used some weathering pigments to change the colour a little bit. So everything that we're using to make this video is available at RAILstuff, including the airbrush. You can order those through us. They take about 5 days to come because I get them direct from the supplier. Yeah, you can have a go at this yourself without breaking the bank either. The only thing you'd have to go buy somewhere else is a bit of track. But knowing you, you've probably got some lying around. So for now, that's me done for this video. Thank you for watching part 3. I'll be back for part 4.